Beautiful Tampa Bay, Florida there. So good to have you along for the ride here on America's Voice Live. Democrat Senator Joe Manchin finally signed on to a streamlined version of President Biden's Build Back Better plan after striking a deal with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Now they're calling it the Inflation Reduction Act. But Americans are wondering how the plan actually intends to reduce inflation, especially since the measure comes with a $433 billion price tag, and it proposes to raise over $700 billion in revenue through taxes and enhancing IRS enforcement. All of this while many of the objectives for this bill are clean energy and climate crisis driven. Some Republicans are even pointing out that the taxes included in this bill will break President Biden's promise to refrain from raising taxes on those making under $400,000 a year. Joining me now to discuss this live and how this act will actually affect Americans in our economy is economist and founder of the Walser Wealth Group, Rebecca Walser. So good to see you. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm good, Terrence. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I want to get to brass tacks here. We're talking a whole lot of taxes in order to supposedly save you some money. It doesn't seem to be congruent. Doesn't seem to make sense to me.
It doesn't seem to make sense to a lot of Americans, and you're 100% right. So the bill is being couched as this is 430 plus billion of additional taxes, but on corporations. That's what they're saying. Oh, this is going to be at the corporate level. But the Joint Committee on Taxation basically ran the analysis and said in just 2023 alone, it will cost an additional $16 billion in taxes for Americans making $200,000 or less. And so we've done the analysis. They've done the analysis. They say it will cost. You have to understand, Terrence, corporations don't pay taxes. They pass taxes on to the people that are buying their goods or services. So when you come out with $400+ billion of taxation, that is eventually going to get to the American taxpayer who actually pays the taxes in this world. There's no businesses that pay taxes without the individuals buying their goods and services. So this is just a sleight of hand kind of game that we play in taxation. All sides play it. Unfortunately, this time it really is going to impact all Americans. It will have a disproportionate impact for those that are less. And when they were pressed about this, when the White House was asked this specific question, you're saying it's not going to raise taxes, yet the analysis shows that it will. They said, well, that's because it's an incomplete analysis. You're not taking into account the prescription drug credits that you'll be getting, and you'll be getting credits for this or that. So in other words, another big government spending program to take in money and decide how to divide it up while they promise no impact to us as Americans.
So help me connect some dots here. This bill called the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation has often been called a tax on Americans. This bill supposedly going to be paid for by taxes, i.e., it seems that this is another inflation.
I mean, all taxation is some kind of inflation as the dollar value goes down, and it takes more and more dollars to do the same thing that we did with less dollars the year before. Any kind of taxation in an inflationary environment is going to be that much more difficult for Americans to swallow because so much more of their budget, Terrence, is going to buying the gas and the food. So you only have so much disposable income. There's a pie. When you slice out more of that pie for basic necessities, housing, food, and utility costs, gasoline, you have less available to pay taxes. So this is the wrong time to be doing this. This is really more a kind of a reduced version of Build Back Better instead of the $1 trillion price tag that they had before that was just unfathomable. They've cut it down to less than $500 billion, which is under $500 billion. And now they think they can sell it by saying it's taxes on American corporations. And they're expecting the public to not really understand that that means it will eventually trickle down to them.
From a larger economic standpoint, we're talking about a $433 billion bill here. No matter how you pay for it, be it taxes or otherwise, it seems like that's still going to impact the economy, particularly, as you said, during a time when we're already dealing with 40-year high inflation.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly it. We need to be figuring out, it's like the hamster wheel, and you're the rat on the hamster wheel that just keeps running. And then we think that we're going to control inflation by spending more money or having another $500 billion White House government, Washington, D.C. package, and that somehow is going to help the individual Americans. They want to push to green energy. This is not the way to do it. The real way to do it is to come up with viable alternatives that the free market wants because they work, and then they don't have to push it through these kinds of mechanisms. When it comes to these kinds of mechanisms, it's because it's not viable usually on its own, and therefore these are the reasons that it gets done this way. It's unfortunate.
Rebecca Walser, we appreciate your perspective this morning. A lot to chew on there. So good to see you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.